All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Art Life video blog. This is day 150. My name is Jonathan Scribbles Wolloch. I I am an artist and art teacher. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about my collage work. I am 33 years old. I'm from New Rochelle, New York, which is in southern New York, for those of you unfamiliar with the New York geography. Pretty much as south as you can go before you get to the Bronx in southern Westchester County. I now live in Portland, Oregon. Moved out here in 2013. And yeah.
Sweet. I'm Jacob Wolf. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for having me here, Jonathan.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah. So, thanks for telling us a little bit about yourself. What kind of art do you think you make?
What kind of art do I think I make?
I phrased that incorrectly. What kind of art do you make?
Okay. Well, I like to make many different types of art. I like to draw. I like to paint. I like all different types of printmaking, silk screening, block printing, etching, mono printing. I also like to make jewelry. I do wire wrapped crystal jewelry, beaded jewelry. I like making clothing. I like sewing. I like to make little wire tree sculptures.
Where did your artistic inspiration come from?
Maybe I'd say my family, and like I think growing up in New York and going to museums and going to museums and galleries as a child. I remember, I don't know what age I was, but I think we were at the MoMA, me and my grandfather, and I think it was Van Gogh's Starry Night. I was looking at this painting and I was like, man, this is so cool. Like, I want to be a painter when I grow up. And like that's, I guess, one of my earliest memories of knowing that I wanted to make art and like wanting to pursue a life of art making.
When did you start creating art?
I think super young. I mean, my a couple years ago, I had to clean out my parents sold the house I grew up in, and I had to go through like attics and garages and closets and all this stuff. So my mom had art from as far back as like kindergarten. So I don't know, like 5 or 6 maybe. I vaguely remember going to like after school activities for art in elementary school. I remember this calligraphy class where we like this lady taught us how to do calligraphy, and we made our own personalized stationery. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
We did paper marbling, and my mom has a bunch of these ceramic masks that I made from like 2nd or 3rd grade or something. As far as I know, I've always made art in some form or another at like camp or at school or after school.
Do you remember people's reactions to your art at a young age?
Yes and no. My family, I remember my family always like encouraging me and supporting me and like taking drawing classes or taking just really not necessarily pursuing art, but just like what would be that word? Nurturing my, just like nurturing my creativity and I guess supporting and embracing it and being like, okay. I mean, I there's art that I saw that they saved from when I was a kid, and I was like, this is crap, or like, I don't know. I mean, you look at like a 4-year-old scribble, and at least for me now, is hard for me to see the artistic greatness of it. But you know, I it wasn't until many years later I was um, I was talking to a friend of mine who had a dissimilar experience to mine, where her parents or family wasn't supportive and nurturing of her being artistic and creative, and it was very stifling and negative experience. So I guess I just thought that everyone's parents were like that, being super supportive and like, oh yeah, awesome art, do that, like do this thing, do that thing. So I definitely took that for granted, but I think the experience, the reactions have been positive.
Do you think that your family thought that you would become an artist, or did they think that it was going to be like a phase that you grew out of and then got a real job?
Uh, well, yes and no. I mean, when I was 12 and making art, I don't know if they saw art as a career path for me, but then later in life, like after I graduated college, I tried to pursue art more on like a business level, profession type thing. And they were supportive, but also not supportive, and definitely wanted me to um, either take myself more seriously professionally or try to find a different avenue for supporting myself. But yeah, no, they've been supportive. There's definitely been fights over it, and them wanting me to be have a more normal lifestyle.
Right. Um, did you go to art school, I assume, for
Uh,
college?
Sort of. I went to college at the University of Vermont. When I graduated, when I applied to college, I applied to schools as an art education major. So my first, I don't know, I switched my majors junior year. So I went there as an art education major, was in the school of education. So I like was doing art, but that wasn't necessarily I wasn't a studio art major, which was which was what I actually wound up switching my major to be. So I got a degree in studio art. I didn't necessarily go to art school. I went to a university that had first, like I said, I was in the education school, and then my junior year, after student teaching for a while, I got kind of disillusioned with all that goes into being an art teacher, because it sounds well and good, and the working with kids and inspiring them and seeing them use their creativity and imagination is it's magical. But working in a public school system and dealing with principals and grades and parents and classroom management and waking up super early and not having much of a personal life because you're just so tired from teaching all day. So I was like, I'm like 21, 22. Uh, Switch gears, focus more on my creative pursuits, and then wound up going. I got had the opportunity to go to grad school, so I went back to school and I got my master's in art education. Like 4 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So now you teach classes?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm currently unemployed right now. I did just been back in Portland now for just after Thanksgiving, so I've only been back for a couple weeks. I before so me and my girlfriend just went on this I don't even know what the word would be to describe it. Super long, crazy, amazing road trip. We left Portland in January. We're both from New York. We were in New York visiting our families. We were in New York for a couple months. One of my best friends just got married. We're part of the reason, like, there were a lot of events that this trip got planned around. One of them being one of my best friend's weddings in New York. My sister had an engagement party in New York. My sister and her fiance live in Israel. We were on the East Coast. We flew to Israel. We were in Israel for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
We road tripped across the country and back again in this RV that the interview is taking place in.
Wow.
And yeah, and then
No wonder that we haven't done this interview until now. I didn't know that all of that had happened.
yeah, it's been 2015 has been a jam-packed, action-filled year.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I quit my teaching job before we went on this trip, and so I was at one point teaching classes.
In like a public school?
Yeah, at Reynolds Middle School out in Gresham.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean it's cool. I mean any opportunity to make art with kids I think is pretty rad.
Definitely.
Just a lot of behavioral issues. There was I thought it was just me and my lack of classroom management skills, but the I ran my classes in the art teacher's room, and I had a relationship with the art teacher. And apparently, school wide, a lot of the teachers were having discipline issues with the kids, getting them to concentrate, getting them to do their work. There was a lot of resistance from some kids to get engaged in the projects. They didn't want to do anything. They just wanted to sit there and do nothing.
Man.
Yeah, it's a bummer. And then the kids that it's like in an ideal world, I would love to have a classroom filled with students that wanted to be there, that were interested in the projects that we were doing, and were engaged and wanted my help. And there were days where there were kids that wanted my help or needed my help, but I couldn't help them because I was busy dealing with other students that were misbehaving or not doing anything. And so it was like eating up a lot of my time and taking away from the other students' experiences. Yeah, it's overall super not cool.
So, when did you start showing your work?
The first time I can remember showing my work was, well, the first time was sometime, I think maybe my sophomore year in high school. My art teacher, I had a really rad art teacher in high school, and she coordinated this group show sort of thing. There was this long hallway in our high school when you were the library was at the end of this long hallway, and there were these sort of like display cases, or I don't know what you'd call them. They're like those fake walls, and you could like pin stuff onto them. Display board wall thingamabob, I don't know, whatever. So the first art show I can remember was at a high school library, and then back to the reaction to my art. There was my senior year in high school, I was in the AP art class, and the AP students got this cool like senior art show, and I did my kind of like the theme of my art was substances and their substances and their, how they affect people's consciousness, or how just stigmas around drugs or different things. And one of them was a painting of like a 6 foot tall bong, and the principal was like trying to take the artwork down, and then some other students were actually like standing up for it. Someone else was like, no, this isn't for smoking pot, this is a guitar. But in the end, the art piece got to stay in the show.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was cool. That was like my first time where I felt like I was getting I'm not sure if I want to use the word negative, but just like getting my art was creating friction, or like yeah, like there was some resistance to it. Yeah, I'd say that.
Is that a theme throughout your artistic career? Did it kind of foreshadow that, or have you not had much resistance since then?
No, I mean, I haven't. I wouldn't say I've gotten. No, I haven't gotten really much resistance, other than that one time. There is a there is a style of art that I like to do. It's very abstract expressionist. I like to go to concerts and music festivals and make art while I'm listening to the music. And it is very abstract and usually without form. And I think it's hard for some people. I think it's hard for some people that don't see the art being made in, like, when you see the art being made in the context, you totally get it and you understand it. And people are like, "Oh, that's so rad, that's so awesome," and they're like, "Cool, dude," because I'm like drawing and dancing, and like I'm going to the rhythm or going with the melody of the song, and it's I think it's pretty rad. But my mom in particular, she doesn't understand it. She doesn't really like it, and it I could see if you're, I don't know. I think you have to be like really into art to dig it. Otherwise, it kind of looks like something a 5-year-old made, and it's like, oh, this is just like colorful scribbles, and like, I guess it's kind of cool, or oh, what's the big deal with this? Like, I can make that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Some it that has gotten a little. People react differently to that. Yeah, for sure. Even at the concert, some people will be like, "What the heck is that, man? Like, what are you doing, dude?" Which I think is even. It's. I love it when people are dancing, and they're confused by my scribbling, and they're like, "What are you doing, man?" And I'm like,
Dancing on paper.
yeah. I'm like, I'm pretty much doing the same thing that you're doing, except you're going like, woo, and I'm going, woo. Yeah.
What other shows have you been in, or projects that you've been a part of since?
Oh, man, a bazillion.
Yeah.
What other shows have I been in, or projects that uh, well, where to begin? I guess so. Me and a group of friends, when I was living back in New York. This is like circa 2008. We used to put on these art events where I was friends with a bunch of visual artists and different various crafters, people that made clothing and jewelry and accessories and other artsy, crafty, flea markety, Saturday market kind of things, and musicians. And we would do these events where it would be like a one night art opening concert art market thing where we'd have maybe like a dozen artists, kind of like what you guys were doing over at your house. Art on the walls, bands playing, marketplace, people selling art and stuff. So there was a lot of shows like that. I mentioned I went to the University of Vermont when I was I lived in Burlington from 2001 to 2006, and that was, I guess, the that was say like the beginning of my artistic career on a more professional level, showing at restaurants in the city. I had a solo show at the public library, which was pretty cool. Um, they have a outdoor pedestrian mall sort of thing, and there's a designated area there for artists to display and sell work. And there was a couple summers where I sold my art in the art alley, which is pretty cool. Around 2003 is when I started going to music festivals and making my abstract scribble art, and then started making and selling my art in clothing because I really liked making art, but there's, at least in the festival scene, like there's a lot of sort of like gypsy nomadic people that are living in buses and vans and trailers and don't necessarily have a place to hang art. They're like, oh man, sweet art. Too bad I don't have a place to put it. So I was like, oh well, duh. Obvious next step is I need to start making my art on clothes so that the art is wearable. And then it's like, oh, you don't have a wall to hang art on, but you probably wear t-shirts and you could buy my art on the shirt and wear it.
Mm-hmm.
And then also it's a cool way to have your art seen by more people than might otherwise see it if it was just sitting on a wall, or if I had a gallery show, you know, I don't know. There's a limit to how many people are going to come to the gallery show, but if someone's walking down the street with wearing a t-shirt that I made, there's I guess limitless potential for lots of people to see the image.
Definitely.
Yeah. What other projects? So, art parties. I'll give a shout out to Urban River Arts. Was like probably one of my first experiences, projects with doing public art with children. This woman, I think I'm gonna mess up her last name, but I think her name is Kim Carmody. Whatever. This woman Kim, awesome lady, lives. I think she still lives in Brooklyn. She was living in Brooklyn. But anyway, so she organized these cool interactive art projects with kids. And we would make these mandalas out of recycled materials. So there were these cool interactive, as far as I knew, free art events for kids to make art projects, which is really awesome, which is really kind of what I'm all about, making art with people, getting other people to use their imagination and creativity.
So,
yeah.
In the last year, on your trip, what kind of art were you making?
Not too much art, no.
Just real busy.
Real busy, traveling. It's not a huge space in here. That's not entirely true. The magnets, this whole magnet making thing kind of grew out of me not having a lot of space to make art, or, not
You should definitely show some of these off. Star Wars.
Yeah, so I started making these collage magnets. Collaging in general is a very, I don't know, like, it doesn't you don't need a lot of space to have a magazine and cut stuff out. You can do it anywhere as long as you have a table. You don't even need a table. If you have a chair, you can just sit down. You can just start cutting images out. Um, the in the magnets, it's a small canvas that you're working with. So I could do it sitting at my kitchen table because that's pretty much the only. I had this kitchen table and then this little like coffee table. Yeah, I don't know. Not a lot of workspace in here. I did some jewelry. I made some bracelets and some. I think I made some earrings and necklaces.
So, since we kind of jumped onto the collage,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about how you started making buttons and then got into collage a little bit?
Sure, I could do that. So, yeah, so starting probably like 2008, 2009, started getting into making these collage buttons. I had, my friend was dating someone who had one of those like plastic hand press button makers, and we used to hang out at her apartment and make buttons. And it was a lot of fun, but it kind of a pain in the butt at the same time, and it didn't always work really well. And sometimes the buttons fell apart. Fast forward like maybe 6 months later, I started dating this girl and come to find out that she has a button maker. Turns out to be this like super nice deluxe like steel like button presser maker thing, whatever. And it just it was a serious game changer. The button making process was a lot easier. You could make them faster. They didn't fall apart. Just yeah. So the between the two button makers and button making, that was kind of my introduction to collage making. I Before that I was doing a lot of like mixed media stuff, and I would say there's like collage elements in the work that other kinds of art that I do where I'll layer images, but I haven't really made like a full on like cutting out images, gluing them down type collage since high school, probably. But it was just a lot of fun. And it's a small canvas, so it's, I don't know. Sometimes painting can be intimidating because there's uh, limitless possibilities with what you can do and what direction and what style, and knowing where to begin or how to begin can be a daunting task sometimes. But the collages, it's small, it's cute. With collaging, like the images are already there for you. You don't necessarily have to think about something in the way that you like conceptualize a painting or any other type of art from scratch. I mean, you could theoretically try to like come up with an image in my head before time and try to construct it, but with the collages, it's not really my creative process with how that works. So I usually just flip through magazines, find cute or funny or satirical or witty things that I think are clever and funny, put them on a button, layering. Some of them are layers, some of them are not, some of them are collage, like the one that you have, that one's hand drawn. The button making is really, again, it's like limitless in the possibilities that you could do with it, whether it's reproducing your own art, making prints and making buttons with them, or I've done 3D collage buttons. I think I'd mentioned that I'm an art teacher, so someday I've brought my button maker into class with the kids to make buttons, and this one day I was just picking all like the I was cleaning up the classroom at the end of class, and I took all these weird bits and scraps that I found on the floor and made buttons out of them. Or I've done an autumn leaf series where you can do buttons with leaves, buttons with pressed flowers. I've done cool fabric buttons, hand drawn buttons, hand painted buttons. You could print make things and put them on buttons, old business cards, art flyers, like.
How do people get a hold of you? Like, are you showing anywhere right now, or do they just contact you to get a hold of like your buttons, your collages,
So
etc.?
so I mean, that's right now I'm showing at the People's Art Gallery of Portland. I'm never totally sure with how they just call it the People's Gallery, but I think it's officially called the
People's Art Gallery of Portland.
People's Art Gallery of Portland. So I volunteer with them. I like we like sign up for shifts and help run the gallery. Then I've got some of my buttons there. I've got some of my collage art there.
Are you in the Big 500 right now?
I'm not this year. So I went on this crazy long road trip, and we got back.
Probably just too late.
Yeah, got back pretty much just too late. I went to the opening whatever that was, last weekend. Yeah, some of these are actually like these right here. These are my squares from last year's Big 500, but I wasn't able to make it this year.
For sure.
But yeah, super rad art show. Love the concept.
Definitely. This is my third year being in it, and I'm really stoked. I got confirmation from some people that bought some pieces, and like I'm super jacked about the show. I'm always happy to be in it.
Yeah, it's an amazing opportunity, both as a art maker and as an art viewer, to see,
so many artists.
Yeah, so many artists, and just like, I don't know, it's a really cool and interesting format, the way that there's all these different styles of art that don't necessarily all go with each other, but they're like butting up against each other because it's such a limited space, and there's all this art crammed into it. And yeah, it's really, really cool.
Yeah. So, what are some of your goals for the future of you and your art?
Oh, actually, hold on. Let me go back and real quick finish that last question.
No worries.
Dang. So I've done a bunch of different art projects, whether it's making art by myself or having collaborative business ventures with friends or partners. And so I've had multiple Etsy shops or Facebook pages. Currently, I'm in like I guess a period of rebranding, or just like, yeah, rebranding myself. I was doing this project for many years, but that project is no more. So I guess right now it's kind of a weird in-between period, but I am and would like to make a new Etsy page for my buttoning, which has been very popular, and I think it'll probably be the Button Dude.
Right on.
So yeah, so hopefully you can find me on Etsy in the near future as the Button Dude.
So if you look for him and are unable to find it, get a hold of me, and we'll make sure that you can get a hold of him.
Yeah, I can also I'll give him my email, because I make buttons for myself. I also do buttoning for other artists or organizations. People have emailed me images, and I print them out and put them on buttons, or they've printed out the images on pieces of paper, and I just have to cut them out and put them on buttons. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun for me. I think it's cool for other people. It's a good way to get a message or get an idea or an image out there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, goals for the future?
Goals for the future. Oof, that's a big one. You open a can of worms here. So this is going to be a big plug for the recycled school. I Part of the reason why I moved to Portland is to start this nonprofit free after school and summer arts program for kids. I'm thinking I would ideally like to be K through 12. That creates a lot of logistical issues having a wide range of age groups and needing lots of different collaborators to help me teach classes. And obviously you can't teach a drawing class with a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 15-year-old because their skill levels are different, their abilities are different, their behavior is different. So um, let me backtrack a little bit. So the recycled school is is going to be a nonprofit or free art program for kids. Essentially, the base mission and goal of the recycled school is to provide free arts education for children, and all of the projects and materials that we make and use are all made out of recycled materials. When I was teaching in New York, I had the amazing opportunity to work with this organization called Materials for the Arts. And what they were this incredible organization that received donations from businesses and individuals, and they had this giant warehouse space in Long Island City, Queens, and teachers could go there for free. People could pay money and go there, and you would essentially just like you get a shopping cart and you walk down the aisles, and there's all this random junk that you can use for different projects in the classroom, different projects, which is I thought. Let me stop. So that was really awesome for me as an art teacher because it gave me a free resource for all sorts of arts and crafting supplies, not just markers and paint and glue, but I don't know, tubes and metal bits that you could make sculptures with, and things that you could I don't know, I found some balloons and old magazines, and we wound up making some paper mache masks out of them. So I mean, it involves using your imagination and creativity to creatively reuse these things. They also, Materials for the Arts, they had an somewhat of an education program. Not they did sometimes offer. They weren't really. They were kind of like workshops where teachers would bring their students and they would sort of demonstrate or give ideas of different art projects that you could make with these materials. So like they were making these old water bottles into fish, and they made this cool like underwater diorama out of all these old plastic bottles, and they like turned CDs upside down with the reflective side showing and made these cool, so it looked like fish scales. So like it was a good I thought it was really helpful how they help demonstrate ways that you could reuse some of the stuff that they have there. So they had class workshops like that. They also had classes designed for teachers to give them ideas, show them ways to reuse the materials. So I kind of wanted to fuse or maybe build off that idea, not so much have the educational component for the teachers, really just focusing on the students, having recycled materials. The big emphasis is having the free art classes for
Mm.
kids. Right now, as an art teacher, I'm experiencing firsthand the budget cuts. Like it's real, you know. The middle school I was working, I was teaching art at Reynolds Middle School. I was the after school art teacher, and I had a relationship with the regular art teacher at the school, and she only taught half of the school, so only half of the school got art. One of my good friends, um, one of my good friends from childhood, she was an art teacher in the Bronx, and maybe 2 or 3 years into teaching at the school, she went from teaching K through 5 to teaching just uh, kindergarten, first and second grade. Third, fourth, and fifth didn't get art anymore. Um, I was teaching art after school with middle school students, and I was working with sixth, seventh, and eighth graders, and some of them didn't get art in elementary school. I had the fortunate advantage of growing up, I guess, in a time and a place where I had art K through 12. Art was a huge part of my life. I couldn't imagine who or where I would be without art. So that was a huge inspiration and I guess goal and vision for the recycled school was to be able to offer free art classes for kids, both for schools that can't afford to have art in their school, or I mean, right now I'm kind of like in the, it's still like, I guess in its infancy. I don't even know if you could even say if it's in its. I mean, I've done, I've held workshops and art classes as the recycled school. Like I've, yeah, held workshops and classes as the recycled school, but it's been like one day or like a couple hours at an event or a festival or a street fair where I'm doing hands-on art making with kids or young adult type people, adults too. So I'm trying to figure. So let me interject. So before I moved to Portland, I was working with. I worked for this organization called Smart Arts, and what they were was they were a free after-school program. They worked directly with this one middle school in Brooklyn, and it was a free after school program. Everyone in the school, if they wanted to, could attend for free. And it was, multidisciplinary. It was art, it was dance, it was drama, it was music, it was sewing, it was cooking, it was sports. They had like basketball and soccer. So that was also a huge, I guess, inspiration for me in the recycled school, in that they were a free after school program for kids, and I was able to see firsthand how these kids' lives are being enriched by this stuff, whether they were really getting into theater and costume design or set design, or there was a piano class that was very popular, or art making or sewing, whatever it was. You could see and tell that the students were really getting into what. There was a robotics class there that was really
Wow.
popular. Yeah, the kids were super into that. So yeah, so it's like, if given the opportunity, I think kids want to learn. They want to be creative. They want to do cool things. And I guess I'm just trying to iron out whether or not the recycled school. There's a couple ideas that I'm working out. One would be either I work directly with one school, which is cool but kind of limiting because I'm just being able to affect and reach those students in that school. Another idea was that I would have a building or rent a space somewhere, and that students could come to me after school, and that way I could maybe be open to an entire school district or a whole quadrant in
Mm-hmm.
Portland. But then that also introduces all sorts of logistical issues on how do the students get there, them getting picked up, them getting dropped off. You know, if we were having students from like 12 different schools, I don't know. I haven't even done it yet, and it seems like a logistical nightmare, and insurance, and like kids going missing. I was just doing art after school in one school, and I was working at Reynolds Middle School in Gresham, and the students, I didn't have, no one was getting trucked in or bussed in from anywhere, and even just then, like dismissing a couple hundred kids from the cafeteria was challenging sometimes. Another third idea, which I think would be pretty cool, would be to have some sort of like mobile art trailer school so that so you wouldn't have to truck the kids around. I could then just truck the recycled school around and come to the schools that
Maybe like once a week at different schools.
yeah, once a week at different schools, try to find under budgeted schools where kids aren't having art classes. And then that, I think, I'm feeling like that's going to be the easiest way, and then I don't have to get insurance
For
because
sure.
you know I'm in the school. I don't have to worry about kids tripping and falling, or I don't know. There's kids dealing with potentially sharp and harmful things. You know, I don't know. I was making art. I work with Scrap. They're an organization here in Portland. They're a nonprofit organization, Creative Reuse Center. Similar to the Recycled School, they have an educational component to them as well, where they do arts and crafts projects with recycled materials. And this past weekend, we were doing creative use gift wrapping at the Crafty Wonderland, and someone was scolding me for letting kids use scissors without having band-aids present.
This the recycled school sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Really, it does. And if you anything that I can do to help,
Yeah.
let me know. I'd love to be a part of it.
Definitely. I mean, so I don't know if I said this or mentioned this, but so yeah, I like have this vision of having this free after school arts program for kids. But
I'm gonna take a potty break real quick. We'll be right back.
all right.